Welcome to The Grounded Leader, Ayurvedic wellness for leaders who want to succeed from a place of balance. A podcast where ancient practices meet ambitious goals to help you operate with strength, clarity, and grounded intention. I'm your host, Shweta Vikram, an Ayurvedic doctor, trauma informed yoga teacher, award winning author, mindfulness coach, corporate wellness speaker, adjunct professor, and a lifelong student of what it really means to lead with clarity, purpose, and peace. Each week, we'll explore holistic wellness, how to excel in authentic leadership, and live with balance and purpose. Let's dive in. What can corporate leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives all learn from dance? In this episode of The Grounded Leader, I sit down with one of my favorite people, and I'll tell you why in this episode, Ruchika Diaz, a powerhouse who has built a thriving corporate career, launched entrepreneurial ventures, is a mom, a wife, and founded a Bollywood dance school in Houston, Texas. Together, we'll explore how the worlds of business and dance intersect and why creativity, discipline, rhythm, presence, and flow are essential skills for anyone leading teams, organizations, or even themselves. Expect real world stories, actionable insights, and an inspiring reminder that leadership, like dance, is all about balance, movement, and finding joy. We'll dive into how discipline builds consistency, why rhythm creates alignment, how presence sharpens decision making, and how flow allows leaders to adapt gracefully to change. Whether you're running a team, a business, or your own life, these lessons from the dance floor will inspire you to lead with balance, creativity, and resilience. And I mumble there. So, resilience. Welcome to the show, Ruchika.
Thank you, Shweta. Thanks for having me. And I really like the whole concept behind this podcast and how you're bringing leadership and wellness and, together in these conversations. So looking
I
forward to it.
Thank you for being here. I am so excited. This is something that I haven't even told you yet. I'm announcing it to our listeners. So I'm returning back to dancing. Like I've been doing
Oh.
dancing, and I wish you were in the same city because I'd be joining your dance school. A friend told me, I keep hearing you say this, that, I miss dancing. Why aren't you doing something about it? So I finally have spoken with the teacher, but I told the teacher also, I wish this person that I'm going to interview was in the same city. You would have liked meeting her as well. And, this is what brings me to asking you about how you've done it all. You've had success in the corporate world as an entrepreneur. You are the founder of a dance school. And so, do you think your background in entrepreneurship, corporate leadership has influenced the way you run your dance school and vice versa?
Okay, so let's take a step back. So, first of all, congratulations on going back to dancing. I have seen you dance, and you are an amazing dancer.
Oh,
What
thank
I
you.
love about your dancing is you dance like no one's watching, and you dance in that absolute carefree way, which I think is beautiful to watch. So
I
I'm
appreciate that.
happy for you. I'm happy for you. So let's take a step back. As you said, I do wear multiple hats, and sometimes it feels like, am I doing too much? Like, life is short, but that doesn't mean I need to, do everything that, comes to mind. But I started off with a very conventional engineering degree. Like, so coming from India, there was
Okay.
always that push towards, academics and following, like, getting a job, basically. So it was either being a doctor or an engineer. That was always kind of the stereotypical paths, and I kind of fell into that, right? I did a little bit of dancing and cultural programs in college and school, which was always actually more fun for me than the actual studying. But again, I followed that path, and for almost 10 years, I just focused on that, worked in corporate America, and never really gave credence to any of that the additional stuff, and didn't really dance much till
Hmm.
the day that I graduated from my MBA. Just this thought came to me all of a sudden, like, hey, why not try to teach dance and do, and again, I was trying to do this on the side, not as a career, right?
Right.
Why not teach dance? Because Slumdog Millionaire had just come out and everyone was talking about Bollywood in America. And
Wow.
this thought came, hey, why not kind of use some of those business skills, maybe start a dance school? And that's how all of that dance stuff started. But it was always on the side, it was always for fun. And I think the reason I take on all these things is I don't take myself too seriously, in the sense that it's not do or die. I'll try it. If it doesn't work, so what? Move on to the next thing. As
Love
long as
that.
I'm enjoying what I do and as long as it brings me happiness, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? So that's kind of how I landed in this mess. Let's put it that way.
For anyone who's listening, it's not a mess. I've visited Ruchika's studio when she started out. I have seen her dance. Forget performance. That's a whole other conversation we'll have because Madhuri Dixit, legendary Madhuri Dixit, gave Ruchika like this big nod and smile, and my heart swelled with pride. Like I had mommy pride when I saw that. But no,
Thank you.
and I think that's what shows up for you, Ruchika. You from the Indian background perspective, you were the straight A student who always got good grades, who got the job, who did an engineering, did an MBA, all of that stuff. But I feel like obviously I haven't seen you in your office space, but I've seen you work as an entrepreneur, talk about your work, and I've seen you on the dance floor. And like the connective tissue that I see between all of them is how you hold space with grace. And I would love, and I would really, really debate you on this if you said that didn't carry over because I've seen you on the dance floor. People's eyes are on you. And it's not just because you're a great dancer. You bring this really good, joyous spirit. Like joy and creativity are the center of you when you show up on the dance floor, right? And it could be very intimidating for people who don't dance, right? It could be very intimidating for people who've been watching dance videos or Bollywood wedding these days, or attending regular Indian weddings, which look like a scene from a Bollywood film. But when you show up, you first do your dance, you don't perform, big difference, and then you ask people, "Oh, come join me." And then you do easy steps. So as an observer, I have done that. I've sat with my ginger ale and observed you. And I love that. And then slowly you start doing simple steps, not even choreography. And when people join the rhythm of that, I think that's when the choreography happens. And I know you teach students, you do performances. And I wondered, was that something you started to do consciously when you started to teach dance professionally? Or has that always been your personality? Like you said, you don't take yourself very seriously. And I know how you mean that because I'd like to believe that's me as well. Like you live once, be dedicated to what you're doing, but like that's not the only thing that you do. But I wonder if in your boardrooms that you've been or in your entrepreneurial spaces, did that spirit show up? Like, yeah, I'll do my best. If it doesn't, so be it. And does that extend to your teammates as well, that attitude?
Yeah, good questions, and thank you for all that praise. People can't see me, but I think I'm blushing. But I appreciate that. So I don't see myself that way, and again, thank you for that, for those comments. But I growing up, actually, I was very, very shy. I was extremely shy. My
Wow.
sister was the dancer in the family and the more extroverted personality, and I don't know where this lingered on within me to kind of have this passion for dance and and I again, it was not deliberate. So none of this was
Mhm.
deliberate. What initially when I started teaching, what I noticed was the women that came to the class, especially the women, came from like busy lives, like being a mom, having jobs, stressed out with different things, and then they would come to the class and the stress would melt. I could see that from the beginning of class where they're like literally dragging themselves to get into class till after the class where they had this little joy in their step, and just seemed like, completely rejuvenated after class, even though they felt tired before. I think that's where I saw, what, dance can do this. Dance or any kind of, I think any kind of activity like music or singing or sports, whatever you're passionate about, if you come in spend that 1 hour, you're giving that 1 hour to yourself.
Mm,
And in that 1 hour, you're forgetting all the worries of the world and you're living in the moment. I feel like, and then seeing that before and after is when I realized, you know what, this gives me joy to see these women experience what they've experienced and have that feeling. So I think maybe somewhere in the back of my mind, I always have that thing of like when I see people enjoying what I'm doing or participating,
mm.
it multiplies my joy. So it was never deliberate, but now that you put it that way, I think that is what has driven me to keep doing it. And really, because I know I can dance and I dance, but there are many people that never danced before or that want to dance more and
Right.
don't have those opportunities. So just seeing them come out of their shell, like I came out of my shell, and seeing them step up and do something, maybe that's the hidden kind of motivation that I have.
I love that. You realize there's a legacy there of self-care. You're redefining self-care and you're teaching other women to redefine self-care. When you think of our parents' generation, for women, a large majority didn't work, few of them did work. But their idea of self-care was maybe getting a facial once a month,
Hmm.
maybe getting a pedicure once every other month. But to me, working in that space of, women's health, especially, to me, that's not self-care. That's something that you do externally. Self-care has to be something that resets your nervous system,
Hmm.
that makes you feel, safe, that allows you to show up as your authentic self. And I think dancing and dancing with you especially creates a, because like again, I haven't been in your classes, but I've seen you dance, I've seen you perform, I've seen videos of your students, your friends who perform with you, and they show up the way they are. And creating that safe space is so important. And I think you're reminding women self care can be about connecting with your joy. It doesn't have to be more polished, more buffed, more external. It can be that internal cleansing. Like you
Hmm.
said, they show up, they're tired. And then when they leave, and when we are happy, I know that happens to me. If I'm stuck in the New York winter and I can't step out of the house, you don't want to talk to me. Like it's not joyous. I need to step out every day. But even now, what I do is, even if it's ridiculously cold, I'll have something in my ears, some beats, and I'll step out for just 15 minutes. I like that cold air in my face because I just know that is self-care.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
No, 100%, 100%. And I think where that translates into the business world or the entrepreneurship world
right.
is again, it's a term that one of my bosses used, which was called servant leadership. So
Ooh,
it's a leadership quality, which again, from our part of the world or in our generation, it was more about authoritative leadership. Like I'm the boss, you're going to do what I tell you, right?
right,
Versus servant leadership, where you're like, you tell your employees, what can I do to help you? How can I help you become more productive, more efficient? Any questions that you have that I can help answer, any issues you're facing that I can solve. So
right.
it's that mindset versus I'm the boss. You all should bow down to me and do as you're told. Which again, I'm being facetious and extreme in that example, but that whole servant leadership of, if your employees are blossoming and learning under your
Hmm.
guidance, they're going to be more loyal. They're going to be more all the things, productive, efficient. They're going to be better and they're going to be happier at work, right? Because they're enjoying what they do. So I think some of those principles, translate into the corporate world as well.
I could totally see that. And I love that whole concept and definition. And I wish more leaders pursued something that brought them joy. Because very often, especially as women, we've been told we need to fit into certain archetypes to be a leader, to be successful, to be a mom. Like motherhood can look different on different people, marriage can look different on different people, right? And I think what you've done is you've broken those shackles. It's a check mark for all of those boxes, yet you've broken that shackle and you make it seem so seamless. But when you are doing the choreography, when you're dancing for yourself, right, it comes very intuitively to you. Music, you. it's in sync. But when you are doing choreography for, because I know there are shows that happen in Houston where your dance company performs. Madhuri Dixit was there at one of them, in case you all missed it, and she smiled at Ruchika, and I saw that little clip. It wasn't little, like very big, joyful. She nodded and smiled, and Ruchika, and so when you're helping a team, how does discipline work there? Because that discipline, you've brought it into boardrooms, you've brought it back home, you've taken it to your entrepreneurial space, you've brought it to dancing. You make dancing look so seamless. But when you, as an individual versus working with a team, how do you frame discipline? And how do people respond to that?
Okay. So discipline is an interesting concept. I think discipline is needed in every part of our life.
Right.
And I think initially, when I was younger, it was more, I may have not been as disciplined and more not as structured. And I
Hmm.
think as humans, we need that structure. We need that discipline. And you see any successful person in this world, right? What do they have? They have discipline, whether that is in their diet, in their like morning routine. That is a huge thing for me. If you
Mm.
can just have like an hour in the morning where you're disciplined and you get your, I don't know if you've heard of the SAVERS acronym. It comes from the book called The Morning Routine, and it stands for like scribe, so write something like journal.
Okay.
A for affirmations,
Mm.
V for visualization, E for exercise, R for reading, and the last S is silence, meditation. And you can just do 2 minutes of each one, and that's 12 minutes in the morning, or you can do 5 minutes of each one, and that's, how many ever, 30 minutes. But that was an acronym, and I was just like, okay, that makes sense. So if you can just have a morning routine where you start off your day the right way. But I digress. Your question was around discipline in the workplace. But again, I think those principles of personal discipline show up at work, show up everywhere you are. And being a leader also means that you want to be an example for your
Mm.
team. You want people to, to not just follow your orders, but actually admire you because you do what you say, right? And you walk the walk.
Right.
And I feel like whenever I had a leader that was just BSing, I guess, or just, didn't really live up to what they were saying or the standards, then I had less respect for them. But
Mm.
whenever there was a leader that had high standards themselves, and that raised my standards, right? Because then that was not acceptable, or, certain things you can't be late on your assignments or excuses or whatever else, right? When you see a leader, yeah, demonstrating those positive qualities, then you want to emulate them.
I love that. And the two things that stay with me, for someone to be successful and for someone to go through their day, there's this sense of routine and discipline. Finding that rhythm in your routine is important. And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be rigid,
No.
but it it needs to exist. It can't be I'll wake up when I wake up, I'll brush when I brush, I'll show up when I show up. Also, I think from a mental health perspective, that doesn't bode very well. But I also want to come back to what you were talking about, Savor. So, can you talk to us a little bit about your morning routine? And I think this explains to me. So, for anyone who believes, I think maybe there's 1% of the population, I'm just making up the number, Ruchika. I think when people make things seem effortless or seamless, there is a grounding routine that helps them stay that way. For someone who just
Definitely.
rolls off the bed, because I've had people ask me, how are you so calm? I was like, A, ask my husband if he believes that. B, the calm comes from the work that I do. I'm high pitta. I am a type A. I'm inherently not that person. I have to the work in is work in progress, but it's daily work. If I skip meditation for 2 days, yeah, I can feel the balance is off. Doesn't mean like I'm punching people, not at all, God forbid. But it's just that I can see I'm more reactive instead of responsive. So can you talk to us a little about how you find that balance that just seems so effortless? For those of you who've not met Ruchika, she's always smiles and she has a sense of ease about her. And I've always wondered, like, what is the groundwork that goes beneath that sense of ease? If you can talk to us a little bit about that.
So thank you, Shweta, again for all those praises. And I I can't say that I have the best morning routine or that I'm as consistent as I'd like to be, right? It is still a work in progress, and I'm, always trying to get better at it. I know you have a morning routine, and I've seen you when you were visiting, you actually did your pranayam and your meditation in the
Right.
morning before you even came down for coffee. So that I was very impressed by that as well. As I said, I'm getting better over the years, and I too notice the days that, for example, I exercise or I don't exercise. The days I exercise, I
Hmm.
do feel more energetic. Like it's contrary to people's belief that you wake up in the morning, you're lazy, and you think you're not going to have as much energy if you exercise. You actually get more energized, right? So
Right.
things like that. Journaling just brings clarity. Like, okay, what do I want to accomplish today? One of my mentors taught me, like, don't have this long laundry list of things you want to do today because that's just going to overwhelm you. Have your top three. So one thing I do every morning is, what are my top three things that I want to do today? And if that I have to do today, must do's. And then if I do those three, then at least I feel satisfied versus a list of 20 things and you're like, oh, I only got three things done out of 20. Like, and you're still not feeling like you had an accomplished day, right? So just if you have your top three, if I do these three, my day's gone well, right? So I have those top three that I do as part of journaling. Affirmations is something I don't do as much, but would like to do. I know there's a power in manifestation.
Hmm.
Speaking of the whole Madhuri Dixit incident, very honestly, that was somewhere in my subconscious because I,
Wow.
growing up in the 90s, being a 90s kid, always been a Madhuri fan, and I had the opportunity to meet so many artists and actors over the years, but never had a chance to meet her.
Right.
But here was a lesson in manifestation for me. Um, when I was actively running Bollywood Shake, so and I was maybe wanting to make things happen, and I was a doer. Like I was, if I do this, then I'll get this, and if I do this, I'll kind of super achiever mode. It didn't come to me, but it was the minute that I let go of that need and
Hmm.
like was actually in a space where now I'm just gonna when things come to me, let them come. I'm not gonna like force things. That's when this manifested. And it was not even something that I had imagined. Like the event just came up suddenly. I was invited 2 days before the event, and I just happened to go, and everything happened there where I got to meet my idol, dance in front of her. She had some lovely words to say, and I was like, it felt like a dream. It was like it just happens so effortlessly. So I feel like when your manifestations come true, they just happen quickly and effortlessly versus being forced. So that was just a lesson there. But I don't know if there was some sort of affirmation or something that made it happen. But yeah, coming back to the morning routine, like I really do feel like it helps you feel more grounded, like you mentioned, and sets you off in the right tone for the day.
Mm.
Um, and the day is a lot more productive whenever I'm able to do, some of those things. Yeah.
I love that. And thank you for your honesty because very often I'll have clients who'll tell me, oh, I don't have 90 minutes. I'm like, you have 9 minutes?
Right, for
So
sure.
that's the whole point. Oh, you'll mess up. I was like, I won't be able to do it. I was like, oh, there are times I'm face down and pecan pie. Like, let's be honest.
Mhm.
So most of us who love life, who are blessed enough to have a life that we enjoy, right, will not do things 100% of the times. So my rule is 80-20. 80% of the times, do what, know yourself. It all begins from knowing yourself. What works for you, what triggers you, what messes you up, what brings you joy, what nourishes you, what resets your nervous system.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to the nervous system, right? 20% of the time, if you're going to trash, yes, hopefully there is no like comorbidities, extreme health issues. I'm talking about people who are relatively healthy. But if you want to, like, I want to skip this today, try it. And when you miss it, you'll know what you missed.
Yeah.
Instead of Ruchika and I telling you all that, oh, if you miss your morning meditation, don't do it. It's like, no, try miss it 3 days in a row. And you'll know what Ruchika said.
Right.
Like, you feel more grounded. There's a sense of balance when you have these. And I love what you said about manifestation. I wanted to also add and ask you, do you think intention makes a difference as well? Like, sure, Madhuri Dixit, I think all of us, Madhuri Dixit, 90s, and the Indian background, like our idol. And there's also, that's the other thing you both have in common, the grace. When I see her, I watch her interviews, and she said something which was so beautiful because an interviewer asked her, "So, how does it feel like your kids ask about like this movie, this, that?" And she's like, "No. When you enter home, I'm just a mom, I'm a person.
Yeah.
You leave all of that behind." And I love that attitude about like knowing where to strip, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, to strip those layers of who you were outside. And then when you come back, because for her nervous system too, home is that safe space, right? With the partner, her children, whoever is part of her family, whether that's parents, in-laws, siblings, friends. So I think that intention also really, really matters. Would you say, like, yes, that was your manifestation, yes, that was your dream, but you did the work. You built this brand that people trust, respect, and love. So when you build those foundations, the right people do find you, and sometimes they happen to be our idols. What do you say to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like all of this, the manifestation can't happen where you're just sitting and saying, I want $1 million, I want $1 million, and it's gonna come to you,
Right.
right? You have to put in the work. And you have to put in the work, but you don't put in the work because you want $1 million. It's almost backwards. It's the whole thing of do your karma, do the work, and the results will come, right? So the same
Right.
concept is you do what you enjoy, especially if you're passionate about it. You put in the effort. You are going to put in the effort, and then don't worry about the results. The results will manifest themselves.
Mm.
Whatever's meant to happen will happen, but you can't manifest something that you're not putting efforts towards. So yeah, I do think intention from that perspective, if that's what you were meaning by intention. Coming back to Madhuri Dixit, yes, she's a very grounded person, very down to earth, even in person. And I,
Wow.
I think it comes back to not taking yourself seriously. So I heard another mentor say this, that in this whole universe, you have the Milky Way galaxy. And in the Milky Way galaxy, you have our solar system. And in our solar system, we're this blue planet, Earth. Within Earth, we're in the United States. In United States, we're in Houston. In Houston, I'm in my home. And in my home, I'm one person, Ruchika, sitting here. So it's like, how can I take myself seriously? Like that I'm the universe and I'm this great person who's done all of this, right? It's
Right.
you have to sometimes just think in that perspective that, it's and that helps, I think, with the groundedness. It's like, I'll do my part, I'll do my effort, but there's so many more forces in action that are
Mm.
beyond us.
It's I love how you said that because it's also very humbling.
Yeah,
And in the world that we live in, I wish more people followed that philosophy because you realize the world is bigger than us, but the
100%.
world is also within us. So
Hmm.
we don't have to be at conflict. Like I love your word choice of there's so many forces out of our control.
Hmm.
And I think that's what maybe is one of the things that I've picked up in meeting with you is when you say you don't take yourself seriously, it's neither your success nor your failure. So the failure happens. I tried it. I'll try it again. The success happens. You also know everything is temporary. On to the next project. And I think
100%.
though those qualities, again, the foundation is the work that you do on yourself as well.
Hmm.
I think really very few people wake up and they are Gautam Buddha. Even Gautam Buddha went through an extreme life
He
to
did.
to find himself and become this role model for so many people. But he didn't start there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say one more topic that keeps coming to my mind is judgment. And I think
Mm.
this is one thing which, as women, uh, any women listeners, I think we are just very harsh on ourselves. We're constantly judging, like you were talking about the 80-20 rule, right? Before.
Right,
Like if we don't do that 20%, we'll focus on what we didn't do instead of what we did do. And it comes back to gratitude and, all of that good stuff. But ultimately, if we should not judge ourselves and others. And when you were saying my students, maybe, they're comfortable around me because I don't judge them. I don't judge them or critique them in that way. I'll critique them in a positive, constructive way. Back
right,
to leadership, when you're working with your teams, provide that constructive feedback. But if your team feels like they're being harshly criticized or judged, right, they're not going to show up the same way. And so I wanted to say about judgment, how it ties to dance, corporate world, and your own self. Because your self-talk, that negative self-talk, is going to
right.
cause more harm than the 80% good that you did. So be kind to yourself.
Oh my God, you're speaking my language, Ruchika. I love it. And I think you were so well said. And I'm thinking, like, so this judgment would also speak to creativity, right? Like, so you as a creative person, when you have that self-love and you are not judging, one choreography is always better than the other and so than the other, right? Like
Right.
everything is forever changing, evolving, and that's the world we live in. But I think, can you speak to your relationship with creativity when it comes to judgment? Like, how do you handle that if you feel like we say we don't care what others say, but when you're a performer, you run a business. I'm sure if one performance gets like 5,000 people clapping, one gets 500, how do you not judge yourself? Because that also extends to your role as a mom, but that also extends to your role as a leader, but also as a choreographer and a small business owner. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, so judgment in a negative way is not good, right? But
Mm,
going back and saying, I could have done this better and striving to be better, a better version of yourself, a better employee, a better entrepreneur. That's fine. That's not judging. That's knowing, okay, you know what? These are some things I can tweak and even do better next time. But you're not indulging in that negative self-talk. Or you're not overindulging in, oh my God, I made that mistake. I wish I hadn't done that. Oh, that one step that I missed. Or, you're not beating yourself up on those things and judging yourself harshly. So I wouldn't use the word judgment at all. It could be, more of like looking back and evaluating, how your performance was or choreography was and what can I do better next time.
I love that because at work, whether it's a corporate role, you run a business, we always do appraisal and evaluation.
Right.
And
100%. Yeah.
that's not called judgment. It's
Correct.
actually called that because you're reflecting on the performance. And
Correct.
you do that not to say gotcha. You
Yes.
do that for growth. Where is room for improvement? What can be enhanced? What are we doing well?
Right.
I,
Right.
I do that even when I teach at the business school. That's what I tell my students. Like, I pride myself on not wrecking people's nervous system, and I want to extend that to all of you as well. You being in the classroom is not about me wrecking your nervous system and saying, gotcha, you failed this. It's
Right.
like,
100%.
I think we are speaking that language where it's more about growth and enhancement and empowerment because sometimes people become complacent if they don't evaluate themselves.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And speaking of creativity, because you were asking about creativity, so yeah, in this whole like appraisal process and the rewards, you're right. Like as leaders, what we should strive to do is provide that constructive feedback, provide that guidance without being harsh, right? Without being rude, without being, overly critical. But the creativity comes in as a leader, and of course, in dance, creativity is everywhere in terms of like choreography and expressions and grace and all of that. In leadership, you can use creativity to solve problems in a unique way. So in this appraisal scenario, right, like being more creative in how you provide that feedback or ideas you give your employees on how they can tackle something in a different way, all of that needs creativity. And in this world of AI, where the robots are coming, you can't avoid it. The AI can do all the mechanical work, but what humans have that robots will never have, possibly at least in my lifetime, is the creative aspect, is the
Mhm.
creativity, the empathy, the creativity. Those soft skills are uniquely human. And so that's what I feel like creativity is. You need it in every aspect of your life. It helps you be more, it come up with better solutions, being more resourceful, being more, invent new things and solve challenging problems, and the list goes on.
I love that. And I think what you're also doing by showing, not telling. And, in the world of creative writing, we say, like, show me where the moon is, not tell me. And I'm paraphrasing and butchering what Anton Chekhov very beautifully said at one point. But you get the message. And I think you're also giving other women the permission to redefine creativity. Because I'm sure you've had women who've signed up who are like, I've been dancing since I was 3, and there are other women who've been looking at people performing since the time they were 3 because they were just never, they didn't, for whatever reason, either they lacked confidence or they were not in nourishing environments that told them show up as who you are.
Hmm.
And I feel like you were building this community. And so running this dance school, choreographing, organizing these performances, and I love watching. Please follow Ruchika Singh Diaz on Instagram, and I'll have all the details in the show notes. Even her dance school, like it's really joyous in a world where you're seeing so many toxic things to watch all those videos of people practicing or just enjoying music. I think what you've also done, Ruchika, is built a beautiful community. And a community is not people who just share a common passion. If you've built a community of self-care practitioners is how I look at it, because there's women, they work or they don't work, they have busy lives because you have a family, you have responsibilities, you have houses. Life in general can take a toll, right? And somehow you have showed it to them as a mom, as a wife, as a successful career woman, and as a passionate entrepreneur, as well as by being an artist. To me, this is where your leadership shines the most. Your bosses might argue with me. We'll keep that for another conversation, where you're giving people to show up to creativity and self care and bring that together in the same space. So, my last question for this conversation of you is, what leadership lessons can other leaders take away from the way you've built community in Houston? Because I'm absolutely awestruck.
um, Okay, so yeah, again, thank you for, some of the things you said. I'm sinking that in for myself because I never looked at it from that perspective. So thank you, Shweta. You always have that unique perspective, and that feedback is appreciated. But yeah, I think community is about people, right? There's no
Hmm.
community without people, and I think the biggest lesson for leadership from this conversation is make it about the people and not you, right? So it make it about your employees. Make it, if you can inspire people, if you can, that's the best kind of leadership, because now they're following you because they look up to you and they want to, they want to do things that you're doing, right? And hopefully in the right direction towards a common goal. And that's basically what leadership is, right? A leader of an army is leading his troops into war, and they have to have confidence and faith in them. So to me, it is make it about people, make them feel seen, heard, make them feel like you're making a difference to their life, right? It's not just about you, it's about them. And then you see how their whole perspective it changes, how they start showing up to work, how they start responding to you, and hopefully that'll do magical things in your world. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that, Ruchika. It was incredible to have you on the show. For those of you listening in, please keep an eye out for the show notes. All of Ruchika's contact info, minus a home address, will be on there. And I promise you, it is absolute joy to watch her Instagram posts because, who doesn't like women feeling empowered, taking care of themselves, being in sisterhood, and moving their bodies without saying, "Oh, I got to move my body." It's like, "Oh, I got to move my body." And we've all had those days where, like, "Oh gosh, I got to move my body again." So thank you, Ruchika. Dance isn't just for the stage, it's a leadership mindset. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Grounded Leader. I hope this conversation with Ruchika reminded you that leadership is as much about rhythm and flow as it is about discipline and presence. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a friend who leads, and leave us a review. It helps more leaders discover the space of balance and growth. Until next time, lead with presence, move with rhythm, and flow with life.